So now we'll start with today's session. Today we are the first thing we are going to discuss is about measures of central tendency. So before going to the next slide, what is the meaning of tendency? Tendency is behavior. Tendency means behavior. So when I say central tendency, that means common behavior. So what we are trying to understand is common behavior of the data set. Common behavior of the data set. So how you can understand the common behavior of the data set. So I'll give one example to you. Suppose there is a class of 10 students, and if I have conducted one exam for those 10 students and every student has scored something, and now I have to tell my friend about the performance of the class. So now there are two ways to give the performance details to my friend. First method is either I have to go and tell all the 10 marks which have been scored by 10 students, that student 1 has scored this mark, student 2 has scored this mark, student 3 has scored this mark, and so on. Or else second method is I can just calculate the average of those 10 numbers, and I can tell the one number that the average of the class is 7.5 out of 10. So when my friend will understand that average is 7.5 out of 10, so when I say average, average is the middle value considering all the actual values, weight of the values. So considering all the weight of the values, when I say average is 7.5, that is the middle value. That means half of the class is below 7.5 and half of the class is above 7.5. So if my 50% of the students are above 7.5, that means the overall class performance looks good. So all this kind of analysis, all this kind of visualization about the class behavior, my friend can understand from that one number, that is the average of the class. So instead of giving the whole data set to somebody, instead of giving the complete data points to somebody, if I can just give these summarized numbers to somebody, it is easy to understand what my data is saying about. So all these things comes under measures of central tendency, common behavior. Now there are multiple methods to understand common behavior of a data set. As we have discussed, actually considering all the values, if I consider the average, that comes as mean, what we call in statistics that as mean. Second method is considering all the values in a specific order. And then if I find the middle location value, then that middle location value is called as median. And then if I count how many number of times each number is present or each number is occurring in my data set, and then the highest occurrence, number having highest occurrence, that becomes mode. So there are three basic types, or there are three basic methods to understand measures of central tendency. So you can come to know common behavior either by the values, that is mean, or by location, that is median, or by frequency, that is mode. So these are the three common central tendencies: mean, median, and mode. Now mean, we have done this calculation, that average calculation right from standard 1 to calculate our average marks on yearly basis, semester basis, whatever it is. So I'll just give the formula for mean, and then we'll discuss median and mode in more details. So we'll start with this presentation now. The mean of set of observations is the average of the observations. So mean formula is sum of all observations divided by number of observations. Very simple. So I'm not going to even solve the problems for this formula. We have two types of mean values, population mean and sample mean. Formula remains same. If you look at population mean, it is sum of all observations divided by number of observations, and in case of sample mean also, sum of all sample observations. Only notation is different. For population mean, we use Greek character, that is mu. And for sample mean, we are using English alphabet, that is X bar. So this is mean, and I'll show you in Excel how to calculate mean by using multiple methods. First is by using autofill and calculation method. Second is by using the formula of mean, and third is by using the data analytics. So when we'll start with Excel in today's session, I'll show you how to calculate mean using different methods. The next concept is a mean for group data. So what we have discussed is mean for ungrouped data, and now we are going to discuss mean for group data. And yesterday's session we have discussed the first session that whenever we talk about group data, we have to consider class midpoints. Whenever you talk about group data, we always consider class midpoints as part of the formula. You take any formula, be it mean, median, mode, or be it standard deviation, variance, kurtosis, skewness, everything. Anywhere, whenever you deal with group data, you have to consider class midpoints, because when we say group data, then we don't have the actual data. So to consider the actual data effect, we have to consider all data points which are present at class midpoint. That is what we have discussed. So everywhere, whenever we talk about group data, you will find MI as part of the formula. So the formula for group data, mean of group data, is mu is equal to summation of Fi Mi. So Fi is the frequency, Mi is the class midpoint product, and summation of all the products divided by summation of all the frequencies. So suppose this is your problem. These are the class intervals, and this is the frequency which is given to you. So the summation of frequency, summation of Fi is 50 first of all. So denominator is 50. We have got the denominator. Now for numerator, we need Fi into Mi product. So Fi is already given. We have to calculate Mi class midpoint. How to calculate class midpoint? It is the midpoint. So 20 plus 30 divided by 2. Lower limit plus upper limit divided by 2. So that comes as 25. Similarly, I can find class midpoints for other class intervals. And then I have to take the product of Fi and Mi, these two columns, and that I'll store in third column, Fi Mi column, and then summation of all these values, that is 2150. And formula says it is numerator is 2150 divided by 50. That is my value of mean, which is 43. So this is how you can calculate mean for group data. And actually I have taken this snapshot from my Excel itself. So whenever we'll solve this problem in Excel, you will see the similar kind of numbers, same numbers in Excel also. So we'll do it in Excel afterwards. So first we'll cover all the theoretical part. So this is mean for ungrouped data and group data. Now the next central tendency, next concept is mode. What is mode? It is most frequently occurring value in a data set. So the number having maximum number of occurrences, frequency, is my mode. So consider following data set. These are the marks obtained by 15 students. So we have 15 marks which are obtained by 15 students. Now in this case, if you look at number 45 is present for 3 times. Number 45 is present for 3 times. Is there any other number which is present for more than 3 times or for 3 times? If I look at 67, for example, 67 is present here, 67 is present here, only twice. So there is no other number. If I look at say 32, 32 is present only once, 76 is present only once, 57 and all. So only 45 is the number which is present thrice, 3 times. That is the maximum repetition of any number. So I can say my mode value of this data set is 45. The mode value is 45. Okay, now consider if I have another observation, 16th observation in my data set as 67. If I have another observation as 67, 16th observation as 67. Now even 67 is present 3 times. Just like 45, even 67 is present 3 times, and both are having highest number of frequency, that is 3. So in such cases, when my data set have exactly 2 modes, these are called as bimodal data sets. When my data set has exactly 2 modes, I say that my data is bimodal data set. Similarly, if I have another value, suppose now 53. If I have another 2 observations as 53, 53. Now if I look at 53, even 53 is present 3 times. So now I have 3 mode values, 45, 67 and 53. So in that case, if my data set have more than 2 modes, then it is called as multimodal data set. So in case of data set, in case of mode, either I can have unimodal data set, or I can have bimodal data set, or I can have multimodal data set. So I can have either unimodal, bimodal or multimodal data set. So these are the 3 types of data sets I can have based on number of mode values. And how to find mode? Count the number of occurrences. Now this is for ungrouped data. Now how to calculate mode for group data? So this is the problem. Now in case of mode for group data, what formula says? It is the midpoint of the modal class. It is the midpoint of the modal class. And how to find modal class? Modal class is an interval with greatest frequency. So that is how you can find the modal class. So look at all the frequency values. Which is the greatest frequency? 80. So this class becomes my modal class. This class becomes my modal class. And it is the midpoint of the modal class. So midpoint of 30 to 40 is 35. So 35 is my mean value. So 35 is my mean value of this group data. Now why this concept is like this? Because as we have discussed, whenever we try to summarize the data, because we don't have the actual data for this frequency distribution table, we have the summarized data. We know that there are 6 observations between 20 to 30, but which are those 6 observations, we don't know. Likewise, whenever we try to summarize data, we always lose some data. So based on whatever data we have, if I know that there are 18 values which are present between 30 to 40, more probability is there that the more repetition of certain number will be there in 30 to 40 only, because number of observations are more in 30 to 40. So likewise, based on that concept, I will consider this as a model class, and I'll say that the midpoint of this class interval is my mode value. Now, in this case, one may say that it may be possible that out of the 11 values which are between 40 to 50, out of these 11 values, there is suppose a value 42, which is present for 6 times. That may be possible, and that may be the actual mode value. So I am considering my mode as 35 based on whatever understanding I have, and actual mode is 42. Because I don't have the original numbers with me, I have the group data, and as we summarize data, we always lose data. I always carry some error in my calculation. Going ahead, using this as a base of data, I always carry some error in my calculation. And that is the base concept of statistical analysis, that we always have to consider portion for success as well as portion for failure, because we always carry some kind of error in our calculation as we go ahead. So what amount of error I am carrying forward? So if that is 5%, 7%, 10%, based on that, I decide what kind of confidence I have in my result. That mode is 35. How confident I am that mode is 35. So if I say I am 99% confident, that means there is only one chance, there is only 1% of chance or 1% of error which I am carrying forward. So all these things we will discuss in more details. That is not actually applicable to central tendency. I'm just trying to tell you that whenever we will shift from descriptive statistics to information statistics, why we always consider confidence levels and errors in calculations, the deviations. Fine. So this is more for group data. Now the next concept is median. The median of data set is the middle value when the data set items are arranged in ascending order. So as we have discussed, median is middle location value. So when I say middle location value, first I have to sort all the available data points, because if I don't sort, then there is no meaning to the middle location value. So consider following data set. I am considering the same data set again, and then the first step is we have to rearrange the data set values in ascending order. So this is the rearranged data set. Now how many values I have in my data set? 15 values, 15 data points are there. So in case of median, we have two different ways of calculation, in terms of even number of terms and in terms of odd number of terms. So we have two formula or two methods to calculate median. So first we'll see odd number of terms, because 15 observations we have, 15 is odd number. So how to calculate median of odd number of observations? Formula is very simple. It is n plus 1 divided by 2. So in case of 15, it will be 16 by 2. That is 8th observation. 8th observation. So 8th observation is my median of this data set. So if I count 8th observation, that comes to be 53. So 53 is my median. The median is 53. So that is how you can calculate median for odd number of observations. Now why 53 is median? Median means it divides the data set into two equal parts. It divides my data set into two equal parts. So if I count number of observations before 53, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 observations. Similarly, if I count number of observations after 53, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 observations. That means 53 as a central point is dividing my data set into two equal parts. Now this data division method is very important, and there are a lot of other use cases of this. Like median is dividing data set into two equal parts. Likewise, we have a concept of quartiles. Quartiles divides data set into 4 equal parts. Deciles divide data set into 10 equal parts. Percentiles divide data set into 100 equal parts. So these are called as data division methods, and that median also comes under measures of central tendency and also comes under data division methods. Fine. So this is about odd number of observations. What if my observations are even in numbers? So suppose I have another observation. Suppose I'll take 80 as observation. So by default, it will come at last location. So it will be easy for me to show you. Okay, fine. So this is my 16th observation. So how many observations I have now? 16 observations. That means I'm talking about even number of observations. So how to calculate median for 16 observation? So in case of 16, if I follow the same rule of odd numbers and if I go for 16 by 2, that is 8th observation, again my median comes as same, 53. But now 53 is not the middle location because 53 is not dividing my data set into two equal parts, because I am having 7 values on the left hand side of 53, but now I have 8 values on the right hand side of the 53. So that is not equal partition. So in that case, what I have to do is I have to consider the next value also as part of median, which is 55. If I consider 55 as part of my median, then I have 7 values on the right hand side and 7 values on left hand side. But then the median has to be a single value. It cannot be a group of 2 values. So what I have to do is I have to take a average of 53 and 55. So I'll add 53 and 55 divided by 2. That is average of 53 and 55. That comes as 54. So 54 becomes my median. So that's why the formula says in case of even number of observations, then the median is average of following terms, which are n by 2 and next term to n by 2. N by 2 and next term to n by 2. Average of these two terms is the median in case of even number of observations. So this is how to calculate median for ungrouped data. Yes, so can we go ahead for median for group data? Have you all understood mean median mode? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so now we'll go for median of group data. Median of group data is a bit complex formula, so we'll go to that. This is the formula for median of group data. I'm just telling you what happens in the background. You don't have to remember this formula because in Excel you will get direct values. In SPSS and other tools also you'll get direct values. Though Excel has a limitation that in case of Excel we don't have a direct formula as median for group data. But yes, we can find out the median values easily in Excel using some autofill options that I will show you in Excel itself. So this is the formula for median of group data. Formula says L plus n by 2 minus CFP divided by F made into W, where I have given the meaning also. So what my request to you is either you can take a screenshot of this screen or you write down somewhere all these meanings, or you take a snapshot from your mobile so that whenever we start solving the problem, you will be aware of all the meanings of all these notations. So L stands for lower limit of the median class. So when I say L stands for lower limit of median class, the first thing is I have to find which is my median class. Just like model class, first I have to find which is my median class. Then CFP stands for cumulative frequency of class preceding to the median class. Fmed is the frequency of median class. W is the width of the median class, and N is the number of frequencies or total number of frequencies, total of frequencies. So this is the formula. So first we'll go and we'll solve one example, and then we'll come to know what these notations means. So suppose this is the problem which we have to solve. Now as part of the notations, if you have noticed, CFP stands for cumulative frequency. That means we need to calculate cumulative frequency also. So that's why the third column is present here with the name cumulative frequency. And it is of type less than type of cumulative frequency. So this is another application of cumulative frequency, or give curves, and then we need cumulative frequencies in the calculation of medians. Now in this case, what is important is to find the median class. So first important step is to find median. We have to find the median class, because once we know the median class, then we can easily substitute all these values. So how to find median class? So what is the concept of median? Concept of median says my median divides data into two equal parts. The median divides data into two equal parts. So considering these frequencies, I have to find such a class interval. It can be any class interval, such a class interval which will divide my data set of 50 observations into two equal parts. So what is half of 50 observations? That is 50 by 2 is 25. So Ideally, if I have the actual data with me, my 25th observation is going to be my median, correct? If I have all 50 observations, real data with me, I'll just sort them and then I'll find 25th location. Ideally, 25th location, 26th location is going to be my median value. But I don't have the actual values. So I have to find in which class interval the 25th value is present or the 25th observation is present. That's why we need cumulative frequency, because cumulative frequency tells me that first 6 observations are below 30. First 24 observations are below 40. And then after 24, from 25th, 26th, 27 up to 35th, all these observations are in the class interval 40 to 50. That means my 25th observation has to be part of this class interval 40 to 50. Correct? So total frequency is 50. For median class, we have to find 25th observation, and 25th observation falls in 40 to 50. So this becomes my median class. Have you understood how to find median class? Yes, all of you?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Yes.
So if this is now my median class, then I have to just substitute all the values considering 40 to 50 as my median class. What is my L? L is the lower limit of median class, so that is 40. Then what is n by 2? It is 25. We have already calculated. What is CFP? Is the cumulative frequency preceding to the median class. So preceding to the median class and cumulative frequency, that is 24. F med is the frequency of median class, that is 11. And the width is 10. So if I just substitute all these values, what I get is 40.909, which is the median of this group data. So now we have this. This is my first data set. This is my second data set. And this is my third data set. So first of all, we will try to find mean, median, and mode. So how to calculate mean? The first method is either by using the actual formula. So what is the formula for mean? Summation of all the values. So I'll say equal to, there is a formula called as sum into bracket, and then I'll add all these values divided by, what is the denominator? Number of observations. So how to count number of observations? So there is a function called as count. So it will just count how many observations you have. So sum of B3 to B17 divided by count of B3 to B17. So my mean comes as 53.666. This is method number 1, by using formula sum divided by count. Second method is, there is a direct formula called as average. There is a direct formula called as average. And then I have to just pass on all these values to the formula of average B3 to B17, and I'll get the same value, 53.667. So these are the two important methods to calculate average or mean. And there is a third method again, which is using data analytics method. If you go to data analysis tab, in that you will find one option called as descriptive statistics. So click on descriptive statistics, click on OK. It'll ask for the input range. So my input range is all these numbers. So I'll select all these numbers as input range. Group by columns. Yes, my data is grouped by columns. If my data is in row fashion, I'll say group by row. Labels in first row. I don't have any label in first row, like what this data is about. Is it age value or weight value or something? No. So I'll not click here. If I have some label in first row, then I'll click labels in first row. Output range, where you want to display your output. Suppose I want to start my output from this location. And then what all you want to display. Right now we'll only focus on summary statistics, nothing else. So click on summary statistics and then click on OK. If I click on OK, what I get is all the details, all the descriptive analysis details, like what is the mean, what is the standard error, what is the median, what is the mode, what is the standard deviation, what is the variance, kurtosis, skewness, range, minimum, maximum, sum, count, all descriptions, all details about my data set. So if you look at the mean value, we are getting the same mean value, 53.6667. So these are the three methods using which you can calculate mean for ungrouped data. So this is by using actual formula, this is by using the average, which is a direct formula, and this is by using descriptive statistics. So what you can do is you can try to find mean of this data set using all three methods. But before that, first let me show you median and mode also. So this is about mean. So what we'll do is now we'll try to find median also. So I'll type median. How to find median? Now in case of median, we have a direct formula. Median. So equal to median into bracket. And then we have to give the data set. So my data set is same. So I'll give B3 to B17 and enter. So my median is 53. Same median I'm getting in descriptive statistics also. Now I'll go for mode. What is my mode value? Again, we have a direct formula called as mode. And then I have to supply the data set. And this is how I can find the mode value, which is 45. I'm getting the same mode value. So this is how you can calculate mean, median, and mode. Now in case of mode, as we have discussed that my data set can be either bimodal or multimodal also. So if my data set has two mode values, then how to find both the modes in Excel? We have 45 as the mode in this data set, and the next value is 57. No, 67 is present twice. So what I'll do is I'll add another value, 67, in my data set. So now my data set has two mode values, 67 as well as 45. So how to find both the modes? If I go for normal mode operation, normal mode function, and if I supply this data set, what will happen is, again, it will implement the same thing and it will give me simple mode, 45, which is the first. So if I have multiple modes, 45, 67, the lowest value in my mode values is 45. So it is giving the lowest value of available mode values. So if anybody have any idea about how to find multiple modes in Excel? Anybody has any idea about how to find multiple modes in Excel? Okay, so I'll show you. There is a function called as mode.mult. So you can see the description also given. Returns a vertical array of the most frequently occurring repetitive values in an array of range of data. So this is the function using which you can display multiple mode values into bracket. Now what is the argument for mode.mult? My first argument is the data set itself, comma. Because I want to find multiple mode values, I have to supply the same data set again as the second argument, and then closing bracket. And now if I hit enter, it will give me the both mode values, 45 as well as 67, where we are going to discuss the concept of variance and standard deviation. So what is variance? Variance means a measure of how my data points differ from the mean. So what is important is, what is the deviation? Difference from the mean is deviation from the mean. How my data points deviates from the mean. How my data points deviates from the common behavior. Mean is what is mean? Mean is my common behavior. How my data points are deviating from my common behavior. What is common behavior? Common behavior is my expected behavior. How my data points are differing from my expected behavior. How my actual values, what are my data points? My data points are my actual values. How my actual values are deviating from my expected values. So again, we are coming back to the same concept, which is the base concept of analysis. What is the deviation of the actual value from the expected value? And that is the base concept of variance also. Fine. Now going ahead, look at these two data sets. Data set 1 and data set 2. Data set 1 has some values 3, 5, 7, 10, 10, 5 values. And data set 2 also has 5 values 7, 7, 7 and 7. Now what is the mean and median of both the data sets? So calculate mean value and median value for both the data sets and tell me the mean and median for data set 1 and data set 2. Both the data sets, mean is also 7 and median is also 7. Now consider if I have not given you the actual data sets. So this is not with you. If I have not given the actual data sets to you and I have only given the mean value and the median value. If I am just telling you that I have two data sets and the mean of both the data sets is 7. Even the median of both the data sets is 7. What is your understanding and your visualization about the data set says, if the mean is also same, median is also same, you may say that behavior or the distribution of both the data sets is equivalent or similar to each other. They are similar to each other in nature. The data sets are similar to each other in nature, but that is not the case actually. If you look at the actual values, the range of data set 1 is from 3 to 10, and the range for second data set is 7 itself only. So only mean or only median, rather only central tendency, is not the complete description of the actual behavior of the data. The important statement is only central tendency, only mean or only median is not the complete description of the actual behavior of the data or the complete behavior of the data. So only mean or median cannot completely describe the data set. So we need to look at how data set spread is. So values are spread across between 3 to 10 in first data set, and values are spread across between 7 to 7 in second data set. So apart from mean also, I need to know how much is the spread between the data items. How much is the spread between the data items, how dispersed my data items are, based on which then I can visualize how my data set is. Correct? So these two data sets are not identical, they are not similar. The variance shows how they are different, and that's why the concept of variance or standard deviation is very important in analysis. Now, how to calculate this deviation or variance? Variance is what? How my data points are differing from the mean. So how can I calculate how my data points are differing from the mean? Now we'll see that. Now consider these data points. So I have 7 data points with me. So what is the deviation of each data item from the mean? The question remains same. So for data set, this is the given data set, I want to calculate the total deviation of my data set from the mean. So what is the average of my data set? If I consider this as data set, average comes as 6. So this is the average, which is 6. So suppose this is my average line. So now I'll try to plot each and every data point on this average line. So what is my first data point and how to calculate that deviation? The deviation formula is xi minus mu. So these are my xi, all the data points, and mu is my 6. So first data point, that is 5 minus 6, then 5 minus 6, then 6 minus 6, and so on. So what is my first data point? First data point is 5. So 5 is at the deviation of minus 1 from the mean. Correct? Second data point is again 5. Again the deviation is minus 1 from the mean. Third data point is 6 itself. So that will be on the mean line itself, and the deviation will be 0. Next data point is 7, that is plus 1 deviation. Next data point is 9, that is plus 3 deviation. 4 is minus 2 deviation, and again last data point is 6 itself. So these are my deviation values: minus 1, minus 1, plus 1, plus 3, plus 2, minus 2. So all these are my deviations. Now, if I have to calculate the total deviation, that is dispersion, total variance, can I just add all these deviations to calculate the total deviation? If I just try to add all this deviation, the answer of summation is coming as 0. And it will be always 0. Why? Because I'm trying to calculate the distance of each data point from the mean, and mean is the middle point. Considering all the values, mean is always the middle point. So if mean is the middle point, that means 50% is below the mean and 50% is above the mean, and they will cancel out each other. In terms of difference, they will cancel out each other. So always, if I consider the distance of each data point from the mean, and if I just add all the deviations, the summation will always come as 0. And that is the concept of mean. So I cannot just add all the differences. Because of the sign, this minus sign and plus sign, because of this plus and minus sign, actually they are getting cancelled. They are cancelling each other. So to nullify the effect of sign, what I have to do is, either I have to take a mod of the values, modulus of the values, I have to just consider the positive distance, or I have to square them. If I square any negative value also, it will come as positive. So these are the two methods to deal with the sign of the values. So going ahead with this summation, the mean value is the exact middle value of the available data set, and so the addition of all the deviation will always be equal to 0. And therefore the average deviation will also be equal to 0. So this is now what this should not be the method to calculate the total deviation. So now we are starting with the variance and standard deviation for ungrouped data. So how to calculate variance? If it is not just addition, this is the formula. It is the average of the squared deviation of each data value from the mean. So we want to calculate average, that is fine. Squared deviation, to nullify the effect of sign plus and minus. Now we are squaring the deviation. which deviations of each data value from the mean. So this is how you can calculate variance. So we'll take the first part of the definition, each deviation of each data value from the mean, that is xi minus mu for I equal to 1 to n. So this will give me the deviations of each data value from the mean. Then I have to square these deviations. So summation of xi minus mu square, and that becomes my numerator. And because I have to calculate the average, I have to divide it by n. And that becomes your formula for variance. And the notation is sigma square. Because I am squaring the deviations, the notation is also consist of square. So sigma square is summation of xi minus mu bracket square divided by n. Now this is variance. If this is variance, and because we are squaring the deviation and the symbol also is square, what is the square root of sigma square is sigma, and that stands for standard deviation. So standard deviation, it is the positive root of the variance. As we are squaring, we have to take the square root. So positive square root is nothing but the standard deviation. So standard distance, deviation is nothing but difference or distance, standard distance. So everywhere when we talk about data set, we try to understand data set in terms of what is the middle value, in terms of mean, how my data points are deviating from my middle value, that is the difference of all data points, distance of data points from the mean. And then we are defining some standard distance, that out of my available data points, how many data points are in a standard distance from the mean. So maybe standard distance, if you consider Pune city now, those who are aware of Pune city, suppose if I consider a PMC building, the Pune Municipal Corporation building, as the middle point of the city, and then if I decide a radius of suppose 2 kilometers, that in the radius of 2 kilometers from the PMC building, which is my first standard distance, the auto fare should be only 20 rupees. Then next 2 kilometers, the auto fare should be 100 rupees, something like that. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to divide my available data into multiple standard distances so that I can apply different rules on different regions. So likewise, we always define the standard distances in my total deviations in my data sets. So we'll discuss in more details in further slides. So this is the base concept of variance and standard deviation. Fine. So this is the formula for variance and standard deviation. So we'll try to solve one problem using this formula now. Suppose this is your data set, 5, 9, 16, 17, 18 is my data set. I have 5 values with me. So first thing is, if I have to use this formula, first thing is I have to calculate xi minus mu. For that, first I have to calculate the mu, that is the mean. So what is the mean value of this data set? Mean value is 13. So mu is 13. If I calculate mu, it comes as 13. So 5 minus 13 is minus 8. 9 minus 13 is minus 4, 16 minus 13 is 3, and so on. So now I am calculating all the xi minus mu values. This is my second column. Now what is the formula? It is square of these deviations. So I have to square the deviations. So that is my next column, xi minus mu bracket square. So these are all the square values. You can see it will nullify the effect of sign. And then it is summation. Numerator is summation of all these squares. So this is my numerator, 130. And what is denominator? Denominator is number of observations, n. So I have 5 observations. So my variance comes as 26. And standard deviation is positive square root of 26, which is 5.1. So this is how you can calculate standard deviation and variance for a given data set. Now this is using formula in Excel also. When we'll shift on Excel, I'll tell you how to calculate variance and standard deviation using different methods. One of the methods we have already seen, and using descriptive statistics. Just by one click, you can get all the descriptive statistics details, which includes variance and standard deviation also. So this is for ungrouped data. Now for group data, whenever I say group data, you will see MI is part of the formula, class midpoint. We have to consider class midpoint for group data. So the formula for group data for variance is Fi into bracket Mi minus mu bracket square. Now instead of Fi minus mu or Xi minus mu, because I am considering all my data points at class midpoint, the distance I have to consider of mu from class midpoint. So Mi minus mu bracket square into Fi divided by n. Suppose these are my class intervals and these are my frequency values. So, and if I have to solve this problem using this formula, the first thing I have to calculate is class midpoints. So first thing I'll do is find out what are the class midpoints. So these are my class midpoints, 25, 35 and so on. Then the next thing is I have to calculate the deviation from the mean. class midpoints and mean deviation. So mi minus mu. Now before that, why we are calculating FIMI? Because first we have to find out mu. To find mu, what is the formula for mean of group data? It is summation of FIMI divided by summation of FI. So only for purpose of calculation of mu, now we have next column as FIMI. You take the summation of all the FIMI values and divided by FI, and that will be your mu value. So the mu is 43. For this problem, mu is 43. So the next thing is mi minus mu. Mi minus mu is 25 minus 43, 35 minus 43, and so on. So this is my mi minus mu column. The next thing is I have to square the deviations. So these are the square deviations. And then I have to multiply these square deviations with Fi. So I'll multiply the square deviations with Fi. And the summation of all these is my numerator. 7,200 is my numerator. And denominator is n. In case of group data, it is summation of Fi, that is 50. So 7200 divided by 50 is my variance, which is 144. And standard deviation is positive square root of 144. Which is 12. So standard deviation shows the variation in data, how data varies, how data dispersion is. So I'll go back to the first slide from where we started discussion, that only central tendency or only mean or only median is not the complete description or cannot give the complete description of data. So now if I tell you 3 data sets, you can easily try to visualize the data set. Now in terms of distribution, how to draw the distribution also. Suppose if I have data set 1, data set 2, and data set 3. And for these 3 data sets, suppose my mu value and standard deviation, I'm giving 2 values. Suppose mu is same for all 3 data sets, mu is 50. But standard deviation of first data set is suppose 40, standard deviation of second data set is 70, and standard deviation of third data set is 100. Distinct. All 3 data sets are distinct. Though the mean is same for all 3 data sets, if I have to visualize my data sets now, when I say standard deviation is 40, that is the less standard deviation value. So if I have to draw this first data set in a distribution format, my first data sets will be something like this. Mean is same, 50, but from the mean, my dispersion of all the data points, distance of all the data points, they are very close to mean. They are very close to mean. That's why my standard deviation is very less. We'll come to that point again. But look at D2, data set 2. Mean is same 50, but now the standard deviation is 70. That means dispersion is more. Compared to first data set, dispersion is more in data points. And in case of data set 3, again mean is same 50, but the dispersion is huge, like 100. It's almost like a flat curve. So from the combination of mu and standard deviation, I can try to visualize data set, how my data set is getting represented in terms of distribution. Now, when I say standard deviation shows the variation in data, that means the variation in first data set is less compared to third data set, which is 100. So variation in data set 1 is less means what? The distance of data points from the mean is very less. That means my data points are very close to mean. That means I'll get this kind of curve, that maximum data points are around the mean, very close to mean. But when I say data set 3, standard deviation is 100, that means variation is more. Large variation is there. That means the distance of data points from the mean is, that value is very big. That means I can draw something like this, a curve something like this for distribution, almost like a flat curve. So combination of mean and standard deviation. Now you can try to visualize your data set clearly. Only mean is not the complete description, but the combination of mu and standard deviation or mean and standard deviation will help you to visualize data set. Will give you the complete distribution of data set, how data set is spread across, what is the mean, what can be the distance of each data point from the mean. All these things you can come to know from only 2 values, that is mu and standard deviation. And that's why these are called as parameters or population parameters. So if you know mu and standard deviation, you can easily predict about that data set. If you don't know mu and standard deviation, then you have to go for non-parametric methods. So in analysis, we have parametric methods and non-parametric methods. So if you know mu and standard deviation, that means you can go ahead with parametric methods. If you don't know mu and standard deviation, that means you cannot visualize the data set. Then there are different set of methods for doing analysis. So standard deviation shows the variation in data. If the data is close together, the standard deviation will be small. And if data is spread out, the standard deviation will be large. So this is very important to remember. Now this is empirical rule, the bell-shaped curve. We generally try to implement a bell-shaped curve. In every type of data, we'll try to get bell-shaped curve, be it marks, be it age, be it anything, economics, anything. We always try to get a bell-shaped curve because we consider bell-shaped curve follows normal data, or data represented by bell-shaped curve is normal in nature. When I say normal in nature, the rule for normality, or which is also called as empirical rule, is one standard deviation away from the mean is either in either direction on the horizontal axis, which consists of 68% of data. So if you look at the diagram, on both of the sides, 34% for plus 34%, the total data points which are in one standard deviation are 68%. So this is one standard deviation on both the sides from the mu, holds 68% of the population. Then two standard deviation on both the sides from the mu roughly consist of 95% of data. This is 95%. So if I add 13 plus 13, that is 26 to the 68, it comes to 95% of population. And then three standard deviation represents almost 99% of data. So this range, three standard deviation from the mean almost represents 99 point something percentage of data. And then whatever is the leftover beyond three standard deviation, 0.1%. And that is actually your part of rejected region, or it is also called as reject region or outliers. So that is another method to find out outliers. If you draw the distribution and if you calculate the standard deviation, whatever stands outside the standard deviation is part of your outliers or is part of your reject region. So this is one application of standard deviation, you can say, the bell-shaped curve or the empirical rule, but that is for normal data. Not every data is normal in nature. Not every data is normal in nature. When I say normal in nature, if you look at the curve, this curve is symmetrical in nature. This curve is symmetrical. That means the left-hand side is exact mirror image of right-hand side, or right-hand side is exact mirror image of left-hand side. That means data is symmetric in nature, or my distribution is symmetric in nature, or my data is normal in nature. But not every data is normal. And that is where the skewness concept comes in the picture. What is the meaning of skewness? Skewness means slanting towards. Skewed towards means slanting towards. So when I have a data set which is slanting towards either left or right, that means my data is skewed towards left or right. My data is not normal in nature. My data is not symmetrical in nature. I have large number of values in one portion of data, in one portion of distribution, and I have very less number of values in second portion of distribution. So based on that, the concept of skewness is there, which we'll discuss in more details, either in today's session or tomorrow's session, looking at the time. So right now we'll go ahead with the standard deviation concept. Now calculate standard deviation for the following scores of three different employees. So I have three employees, A, B, C, and this is the performance values of the three employees in last 5 weeks. So in first week, A has performed at 92%, and then in second week, A has performed at 88%, and so on. So these are the three employees, and these are the performances of three employees in last 5 weeks. Now, if you look at the mean value, the mean of all three employees is 76. So mean performance is same for all three employees, that is 76. Now you as a manager, if you have to select one of the employees for your project, which employee you will select and why? So actually, if all of you like cricket, you can compare this situation with a cricket match. If the pitch is tricky and if score is also tricky, then you will send out the consistent performer. If the pitch is good for batting and score is very on lower side, then you can even send your number 3, number 4 batsman as opener. If pitch is good for batting and if the score is huge which you want to chase, you have to send your hitman at number 1. So it depends. The answer is not only C, only B, or only A. Answer depends on what kind of project you have, what kind of situation you have. If the project is going to be there for next 5 weeks and you want to have a consistent performance in next 5 weeks, you will go ahead with employee C. But if it is a short project, small project of say 1 week or 2 weeks, and then you want best performance because you want to complete that project in maybe 1 week instead of 2 weeks, then I may go ahead with employee B, which is giving very good performance in a short period of time. But if I continue with that employee, that employees tend to give me a bad experience also. So it depends on what situation you are in. It depends on what type of project you are handling. It depends on what is the time duration of the project and multiple other factors based on which you can take a decision whether to go ahead with employee A, B, or C. But yes, as a common answer, looking at only numbers without looking at all the factors, I will go ahead with C. That is the correct answer. So first method is use equal to, and then you have a function called as variance or var. Now you'll find multiple functions, var.p, var.s, var.a, that is for population, for sample and everything, but that is not part of the course. We're not going to more details. You just use plain variance function and give all the data sets as the input. 32.5, that is my variance. And then what is standard deviation? Standard deviation is positive square root. So either you can go for SQRT function and then you can give this value as input, or you can use the standard deviation function stdev. Again, you will find population sample methods, different methods for standard deviation. I'll use standard deviation method, plain standard deviation method, and then you can calculate standard deviation, that is 5.70, which will come as same, square root of 32.5. So this is my variance and this is my standard deviation. This is how you can calculate variance and standard deviation in Excel. Second method you are already aware of, using data analysis, and then using descriptive statistics. You can find out all the values like variance, SD, mean, median, and more. So this is a simple way to calculate variance and SD in Excel. Nothing much to do in case of ungrouped data. Now for group data, as we have discussed that we don't have any direct function for group data for anything, mean, median, mode, standard deviation, variance. We don't have any direct function. We have to do the calculations in Excel format only. So how to find variance in case of group data? So first thing is we have to find MI, the same thing which I have shown you in the presentation. So how to calculate MI? MI is calculated as upper limit plus lower limit. So lower limit plus the upper limit, addition divided by 2. Addition divided by 2. 20 plus 30, 50 divided by 2 is 25. So that becomes my class midpoint. Similarly, I have to calculate class midpoint for other classes. So these are my MI values. I'll just do one thing. Just a minute. Okay. So these are my class midpoints. Now the next thing is I have to calculate FIMI to calculate the mean value. So FIMI is nothing but frequency multiplied by class midpoint. Again, copy, select all the other cells where you want to paste the formula, and Control V, paste, autofill option. So this is how you can calculate FIMI. Now what I want is, I want summation of FIMI, which is a numerator for calculation of mean. So I'll select all these values. So this is my summation of FIMI, which is my numerator for mean. And what is the denominator? Denominator is summation of FI, which is 50. So what is my mean value? Mean value is, I'll say mean is 2150 divided by 50. So mean is coming as 43. So the same problem which we have solved in presentation. If this is my mean value 43, the next thing I have to calculate is MI minus mean, MI minus mu. So how to calculate MI minus mu, which is equal to MI minus. Now mean is a single cell value. Every time I have to consider G11 as the mean value. So in the formula, what I'll do is I have to keep this constant for remaining cells. So I'll put a dollar before G and before 11. And now I can easily copy and paste this formula for remaining cells. So these are my MI minus mu values. I'll call this column as, suppose, difference, so D. So what is the next thing is, I have to do D square, deviation square. So that is equal to this value into the same value, that is square value 324. Again, I'll copy and paste in remaining cells. So these are my square deviations. The next part is I have to multiply square deviations with f. So I'll give this name as d2. So d2 into f. I have to calculate d2 into f. So square deviations into the frequency value. Again, I'll say copy and I'll say paste in remaining cells. So that will give me the deviations into frequency value. And then last is I need summation of all these values. So this will give me the summation 7200. That is my numerator. So what is my variance? Variance is equal to, this is my numerator, divided by, what is the denominator? Denominator is summation of fi, that is n. So 144 is my variance and standard deviation is positive square root. So I'll use square root function of 144, which is 12. So these are my variance and standard deviation value. And now we'll start with the next concept, the last concept for today. We have discussed the normal curve, normal distribution, which consists of two important parameters, that is mean and standard deviation, mu and sigma. So based on these two parameters, if you know these two parameters, you can easily visualize your distribution, your data behavior. So the normal distribution is symmetric in nature. Normal curve or normal distribution is symmetric in nature, with the shape of the normal curve to left of the mean is mirror image of the shape of the normal curve to the right of the mean, which is what we have discussed already. Because it is symmetric in nature, the normal distribution is not skewed. The skewness quotient is always 0. The skewness value is always 0. The standard deviation determines how flat and wide the normal curve is. The larger value of standard deviation results in wider and flatter curves. This is what we have discussed. The lower value of standard deviation, that means we have more and more data points which are very close to the mean. So if sigma is equal to 5, you will get this kind of curve. If sigma is equal to 10, you will get a more flatter curve. If sigma is equal to 20, you will get almost a very flat curve. So normal distribution can be of different types based on the value of sigma and mu. Now probabilities are normal random variable which are given by areas under the normal curve. So when I say my mu is the midpoint, mean is the midpoint of my data set, and if this is a normal curve which is symmetric in nature, when I say symmetric in nature, that means the left hand side of the mean of my curve is mirror image of right hand side of my curve. That means I can say 50% of values are present in left hand side of mean and 50% of values are present in the right hand side of the mean. So half of the curve consists of 50% of population and half of the curve consists of remaining 50% of population. Correct? That I can consider based on the condition that this is a normal curve which is symmetric in nature, mirror image in nature. So I can say the probability of the left hand side of the mean is 0.50, 50% is 0.50, and the right hand side is again 0.50, 50% of right hand side. This is the empirical rule which we have already discussed, that one standard deviation covers 68.3% of data, 95.4% consists of two standard deviation, and 3 standard deviation consists of 99.7% of data, which is the empirical rule. So what now we are going to discuss in the next few minutes is normal distribution, which is based on normal curve. So whatever kind of curve we have, it may be a curve with some mean value and some standard deviation value 5, 10. So we can have different distributions. So this is distribution number 1 or data set number 1. This can be distribution number 2 or data set number 2. But the empirical rule will remain same. What is the meaning? Meaning is, if this is my middle point, when I say my empirical rule says that 68% of data in one standard deviation. So for data set number 1, if this is my 68% of data, this becomes my one standard deviation, distance, one standard deviation. But for data set number 2, because standard deviation is more compared to first data set, the 68% data will almost cover this much of distance. So for same mu, for second data set, my one standard deviation is this distance. So the distance of standard deviation is relative in nature. When I say distance from mu is relative in nature, so what we do in normal distribution is we try to represent every curve considering mu as equal to 0 and standard deviation distance as 1. And that is the concept of normal distribution. We always consider mu as 0. So whatever data set we have, whatever is our mean, we try to map our mean as 0, and we try to consider our standard deviation unit as 1. Now, considering this value of mu and this value of standard deviation, then we can easily calculate how much percentage of population, how much percentage of data is in which standard deviation at what distance. And for calculation of those values, there is a table which is called as Z table. We can use Z table to calculate the distance of each data point from the mean, which is a relative distance, and then we can actually calculate the actual distance from that relative distance. So in addition to measures of location, variability, and shape, another important aspect is the relative location of values within the data set. So measures of relative location helps us in determining how far a particular value is from the mean. So now we are going to discuss this relative location concept in next few minutes. So as I have discussed that we use Z tables, and using Z table we can calculate the Z score. So Z score gives the relative location of each data from the mean. So now I'll explain the concept of Z score with one example to you. Suppose we have a sample of n observations. Suppose we have n observations, which is a sample of n observations, and with the values denoted as x1, x2, x3 up to xn. So these are my n observations, some values. Assume that the sample mean is x bar. So I'm calculating the sample mean, which is x bar, and the sample standard deviation is s, small s. Because I'm dealing with samples, I'm using English alphabets. X bar and s are my mean and standard deviations. Now, the formula to calculate Z score, which is a relative location, is equal to xi minus x bar divided by s. Now, why this formula is like this? When I say xi minus x bar, so if you can remember, we represent the curve something like this with this as mu. Suppose my data point is here. This is my xi. And mu is what? Your x bar in this case. So what is the distance of this data point from the mean? What is the distance of this data point from the mean? So what is this distance? This distance is difference between xi minus x bar. That is my numerator. Xi minus x bar. That is my distance. But this distance is how much of standard deviation. So suppose this is my 1 standard deviation distance. This is my 2 standard deviation distance. This is my 3 standard deviation. So in terms of standard deviation, how much standard deviations are there in my distance? So I have to divide this difference value by standard deviation. I have to divide this difference value by standard deviation. So I'll give an example to you. So Z score, Zi can be interpreted as the number of standard deviations Xi is from X bar. So suppose if it is exactly following out this line, that means it is at 1 standard deviation. But suppose my Xi is on this side at this location, then it will be a fractional number. It will be something like 0.7 standard deviation. The distance is 0.7 standard deviation from mean. So we want to calculate the number of standard deviations that data point is away from the mean value. The number of standard deviations my data point is away from that mean value. So for example, suppose if I say Z1 is equal to 1.2, if I'm calculating some Z score for some X1 and that Z1 comes as 1.2, would indicate that X1, that data point actually is 1.2 standard deviations greater than the sample mean. So if I have to plot this data point, how can I plot this data point? So this is my curve. In this curve, this is my mu. In this mu, if this is my 1 standard deviation and this is my 2 standard deviation. This is 1 standard deviation, this is 2 standard deviation. So when I say X1 is at 1.2 standard deviation, that means I have to consider the first standard deviation distance completely, and 1.2, that is fraction of second standard deviation. So 0.2, somewhere here. Somewhere here, I have my data point X1. So I can count number of standard deviations in terms of distance. So Z1, if Z1 is 1.2, X1 will be at certain location considering Z1 as 1.2. Similarly, if I say Z2 is equal to minus 0.5, when I say minus 0.5, the data point has to be on the left-hand side of the mean. That's why the distance is negative. So again, if I have to plot this data point, this is my distribution, this is my mean, this is my one standard deviation, and this is my two standard deviation, suppose. So when I say minus 0.5, that is half of one standard deviation. So half of this distance is this on left hand side. So somewhere here I have my x2. So if I know the distance in terms of relative distance, I can easily plot my data points in my distribution. So now you can try to understand why we are doing all these things. I don't want to disclose, or I don't want to share the complete data set with somebody. I have to just share my mean, my standard deviation, and in case of specific values, I have to just share the relative distances, and easily one can visualize the data set, can visualize the distribution, and can plot the data points exactly based on that distance. A z-score greater than 0 occurs for the observations with a value greater than the mean, and the z-score less than 0 occurs for observations with a value less than mean. Normal, if z-score is positive, it has to be on the right hand side. If z-score is negative, it has to be present on the left hand side. Simple rule. Now we'll skip the Chebyshev's theorem. There is a concept of Chebyshev's theorem, but that is pure statistics, so I'll skip that. This normal distribution, empirical rule, 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviation, 3 standard deviation, 68, 95, 99 rule, which we have discussed. And this is the Z table. Now I'll also tell you how to read the Z table. So first, whenever any problem comes, first calculate Zi and then use Z table to calculate the distance, and from that distance, then you can create the conclusion. First problem. Suppose that IQ scores have a bell-shaped distribution. That means it follows normal curve, normal distribution with a mean value 100. So mu is given 100 and standard deviation is 15. S is also given as 15. What percentage of people should have an IQ score between 85 and 150? Now you don't have actual data to calculate how many students are there between 85 and 115. Just you have two numbers, mean, which is 100, standard deviation, which is 15. Based on these two numbers, I want to calculate proportion of the population, percentage of the population, which is between 85 to 115, and that is possible to calculate because of these relative scores or relative distances. So how to solve these kind of problems? Step number 1, draw the normal curve first. Step number 2, draw the mean, which is 100 right now. Step number 3, draw the data points which are given in the problem, like 85 and 115. So 85 is less than 100, so it has to be on the left hand side of the mu, and 115 is greater than mean, so it has to be on the right hand side of the mean. So 85 is on left hand side and 115 on the right hand side of the mean. Step number 4, calculate the z value for both x1 and x2. So calculate z1 and z2 using this formula, x minus mu divided by sigma. So if I calculate z for x1 and x2, it comes as minus 1.0 and plus 1.0. Now the value of z comes as minus and plus. Why? Because one data point is on the right hand side, so difference has to be positive, and one data point is on the left hand side. So because of this minus sign, the difference will be always negative. But what is important for us is the value, not the sign. 1 as a value is more important. That shows the distance. Just because it is on the left hand side, the sign is negative. So we always omit the sign. In case of z calculation, we always omit the sign. So what is important is distance is 1. So relative distance from mu for both the data points is 1. That means both x1 and x2 are at 1 standard deviation from mu. Okay. Now we have to calculate percentage of people between 85 and 115. So how to do that? Now we'll go to the Z table. And we'll try to read the Z table. Now I'll tell you how to read Z table. Suppose the value of Z is 1.27. Suppose the value of Z is 1.27, then we have to split this number 1.27 into two parts. First part is 1.2 and second part is 0.07. So what division I have done? I have taken the first fraction after decimal point. And the remaining fraction as second part of the number. So this is how you have to split the Z value. So suppose Z value is suppose 1 or 2.67. So I'll split this Z value as 2.6 as one part and 0.07 as second part. So this is how you have to split your Z value, and then you have to look for first part in rows and second part in columns. First part in rows and second part in columns. Right now, what our Z value is 1.00. So if I have to split 1.00, my first number becomes 1.0 and second number becomes 0.00. 0.00. So I have to look for a row of 1.0 and column of 0.00. So we'll go to the Z table and we'll find the relative value for 1.00. So what is the row of 1.0? This is row of 1.0 and column of 0.00. So what value comes as is 0.3413. Now this is the distance for one standard deviation. So when I say distance for one standard deviation, that means 0.3413 is the distance of x1 from mu on left hand side. Similarly, the same is the distance of x2 from mu on right hand side. So if I have to calculate the total distance, I'll add both the numbers to calculate total population between x1 and x2, which comes as 0.6826. So I can say 68.26% of the population is having IQ between 85 and 115. And you can cross check this with your empirical rule. Empirical rule says in case of one standard deviation on both sides, it covers almost 68% of population, and that is true. So for this given problem, I can say 68.26% of population is having IQ between 85 and 115. Am I clear? Can we go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Yes, all of you. Can we go ahead? Can we solve more problems now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So next problem, 70 and 130. I'm keeping the same mean and same standard deviation, 115. So I want to calculate percentage of population between 70 and 130. Again, I'll follow the same steps. I'll draw the mean, which is 100. X1 is 70 now, X2 is 130. And then if I calculate Z comes as 2.0 on both the sides. Using formula, if I calculate Z comes as 2.00. So how to read Z table with 2.00? Row of 2.0 and column of 0.00. So again, we'll try to go to Z table, row of 2.0 and column of 0.00. The value comes as 0.4772. That is the distance of x1 and x2 from the mean. So total distance has to be addition of both the distances, which is 0.9544. So I can say 95.44% of the population is having IQ between 70 and 130, which is 2 standard deviation rule, empirical rule. Because Z is 2, it should have the empirical rule of 2 standard deviation. So which is true to 95.44%. So this is how you can calculate different proportions in terms of normal curve if you know mean and standard deviation. So we'll solve another example, third example. Now I'll take some different values on both the sides, not the similar values. So on one side, my x1 is at 70 and second side my x2 is at 115. I want to calculate number of people or percentage of population between 70 and 115. So again, if I calculate Z using the formula, Z comes as 2.0 on one side and 1.0 on one second side. So I have to read Z table for both the values, for 2.0 also and for 1.0 also. So that means x1 is at 2 standard deviation from the mean, whereas x2 is at 1 standard deviation from the mean. So we'll go to the Z table. For 1.0 and 2.0, if I read the Z table, these are the values of 1.0 and 2.0. So that means my x1 and x2 distances, I have to add both the distances for total distance, and the addition comes as 8185, 0.8185. That means 81.85% of the population is having IQ between 70 and 115. Are these problems clear with you? Can we go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now considering that you have understood all the problems, solve this problem. It is 89 and 114. So Z value is 0.74 and 0.933. So the Z value will split it as 0.7 and 0.04. and this Z value will split as 0.9 and 0.03. So if you look at Z table with these values, the value comes as 0.2704 and 0.3238. If I add these two values, it comes as 5942. 59.42% of population is having IQ between 89 and 114. Have you got this answer? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now try to solve this problem. So right now x2 is 130. We don't have any x1 and we want to find more than 130. That means this portion. We want to calculate percentage in this portion. So first we'll calculate the Z value. Z value comes as 2.0. So we'll go to the table. We'll find value of 2.0 is 4772. But what we have discussed is in case of normal distribution, normal curve, half of the curve is always consisting of 50% of the population. That means 0.5. The value is 0.5. So the total distance from the mean of the last data point is 0.5. Out of this total distance 0.5, if this distance is 0.4772, then the remaining distance will be 0.5 minus 0.4772. So that is 0.0228. So I can say 2.28% of population is having IQ more than 130. Okay, so if you try to solve this problem, you have to find this portion less than 68, which covers 0.5, which is left to the 62 also. So first we'll find the Z value for x1, which is 68, which comes again as 2.0. So this distance from the mean is 2.0, and then we have to add the 50%, which is already there on the left hand side. So we'll go to the table. The two standard deviation is 4772. So this distance is 4772 plus this 50% is already present. So total comes as 0.5 plus 0.4772, which is 0.9772. So 97.72% of the batteries will last less than 68 hours.